Question for those who have had an arranged marriage. How was your first wedding night? Was it awkward? My parents and aunt made arrangements with the bride's family. I returned to my native country and met her once before the wedding. On the first wedding night, she was very shy. She wouldn't get out from under the blanket and giggled and wouldn't let me pull it off. Nothing happened that night. The next day she called her mother and talked to her for half an hour. Later that evening, as we lay on the bed watching TV, she looked at me, and in a shaky voice, must have been the first time she had ever said a whole sentence to me, "I don't know how to do this at all." I laughed to lighten the mood, then hugged her gently. Some more joking around, and 2 hours later we were at it. Now we have 2 kids. Arranged marriages are not as bad as they may seem. In my homeland, they are very common. Sometimes the grooms don't even see their brides before the wedding. My wife and I are still lucky, because sometimes the parents of the newlyweds sit outside the bedroom on the first night to make sure that the bride was a virgin. My first marriage can be called an arranged marriage. When I was 12, my husband's family agreed with my father that I would marry their middle son when I turned 18 and finished school. I already knew him. His sister was my best friend, and he was friends with my brothers. We hardly spoke to each other until our official engagement took place, and he paid the mahar, bride gift. During the 6 months between the engagement and the wedding, we socialized, went on dates, talked on the phone to get to know each other better. I liked him more and more, but I wouldn't say I was in love with him. Over time, I started to like him. He was a good, caring, nice guy, and was good to me. He supported my decision to go to university. We were good together. We liked to travel together. We were both interested in photography. We thought about having children after I finished university. We were only married for 2 years until he passed away in a car accident. I feel like if we had lived together longer, we would have made it work. As far as intimacy goes, that was fine. We were both innocent before marriage. On our first wedding night, I tried to do what I saw in the strawberry, although it didn't work out so well. But the more we practiced, the better we got at it. RS, I'm from Jordan. I now live in Korea with my second husband. Our marriage is not arranged, we met at a party. Our 2-year-old son, and our dog. My wife comes from a Muslim country, but her parents live in the capital and are quite modern. However, she has relatives who live in small villages and are far from being as advanced. One of her 3 cousins wanted to get married. His mom started looking for a bride, but it took quite a while. Some of the girls were considered not traditional enough. With others, it didn't work out because their parents decided that the guy's family was too strict. Even for a village in the middle of nowhere, they put a condition that the bride should be Muslim, wear a hijab, pray 5 times a day, and so on. Finally, they found a girl who met all the requirements. His mom was in agreement. The girl's parents were also in agreement, and they agreed to have the wedding in a couple of weeks. I was not able to attend the wedding, but my wife later told me that it was a very traditional Muslim wedding, and I was very sorry I was not there, as it must have been very interesting. So the wedding took place. It ended very early, and all the guests went home. My wife and her family went to a hotel which was an hour away from the village. Suddenly, my father-in-law's cell phone rang. I should note that my father-in-law is very respected by all his relatives because he has a good job in the capital. He communicates with high-ranking people. In general, he is a very respected person. It was about 1 a.m. His older sister called him and asked him to return to the village immediately because something had happened there. Deciding that the issue was related to money, he is asked for it quite often. He demanded that she explain to him what was going on. And here we come to the funniest part. The groom was raised in a very strict family. He had never had anything with girls, not even dates. He didn't even have much contact with women before the wedding. It was the same story with the bride. The ceremony ended. They went to the bedroom where they realized that both of them had no idea what to do next. That is, these people didn't know how to do this stuff. They had never seen an adult movie. They had no sex education classes. No one had thought to explain what to do in bed. So they called their aunt, the oldest member of the family, to explain everything to them. but the aunt decided that she, as a woman, could not explain such a thing to a man. Otherwise it would come out very awkward. So she called her younger brother, my father-in-law. My father-in-law didn't want to drive a whole hour back for such a nonsense, which, moreover, doesn't concern him at all. Besides, you could have found other counselors not an hour away from the village. His wife, her mom and sister laughed until they fell over themselves as they couldn't believe that such a thing could happen in 2013. No one could have imagined that such a problem could occur, otherwise action would have been taken. Her father-in-law advised them to find someone experienced nearby, and said he was ready to go if they couldn't find anyone. Fortunately, they turned to one of the guests who agreed to go to the groom and explain to him what to do with the wife and how to consummate the marriage. About a week later, the wife came back and told me that apparently something had gone wrong because the next day it was noticed that the bride's gait was somehow strange. They even had to see a gynecologist because something happened that night that hurt the poor girl. We still don't know exactly what he did wrong. In fact, they themselves were very embarrassed about the whole situation. They were anxious to keep everything a secret. We only found out because of the fact that they asked their father-in-law to talk to the groom. All this happened in a small remote village in Azerbaijan. While it's hard for us to believe such a thing, it's one of my favorite stories out of all the ones I've heard. I don't think this happens often in arranged marriages. I was a victim of an arranged marriage. I was living in the USA and my parents were living in India. My parents arranged this marriage. They met the girl, were satisfied with her and her parents, and arranged the wedding. I was notified only when everything was decided. She was beautiful and educated, so I didn't mind. We had many phone conversations before the wedding, but things didn't work out the way I expected. Anyway, on the first wedding night, she wouldn't even let me touch her. I thought she was scared. She was 4 years younger than me, so I stopped my attempts. The next morning she said she was really scared of the first time. I decided we could wait with that. I waited for a month, after which she said she would go for intimacy when she flew to visit me in the US. A few days later she flew in, but she didn't even meet me. It turned out that she was having an affair with another guy before we got married. So she wouldn't even let me touch her. She disappeared for 3 whole months. After that, she emailed me that she wanted a divorce and demanded a bunch of money. To answer your question, I can say that in our case, what was awkward was our entire arranged marriage. My marriage can be called an arranged marriage. I was born in the UK, like my mom, but my dad is from Pakistan. After I finished college and worked for a couple of years, my parents asked me if I wanted to get married. My mom said she was thinking about whether I should marry my cousin. At first, I found the very thought of it repugnant, but she asked me to take my time deciding. A couple months later, my mom told me that her sister, my aunt, told her that my cousin wanted to talk to me about it. Turns out she actually lied to me because the cousin wasn't aware of it at all, but her mom was fine with the marriage. So my mom set it up to make me change my mind. The plan succeeded. I agreed to meet after all. The cousin was an attractive girl. We met, and our meeting could be considered the most awkward first date in the history of mankind. Dinner dragged on for 3 hours, during which we ran through all the components of a normal dating experience. We talked about what we like, what we don't like, what we are attracted to in people, the peculiarities of their characters, etc. As I've already written, all this went in a very awkward atmosphere. But at the end of the meeting, we were almost ready to marry each other. It was just unimaginable. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before. About 2 weeks after our engagement, we were texting her, and I sent her an anecdote that I could tell was obscene. She responded with something, and it all led to a real sexting session. Yes, 2 weeks after I agreed to marry my cousin. We were already in the middle of texting each other all sorts of obscenities. It was around this time that I found out she knew nothing about intimacy. After a couple weeks, I sent her some body pics without intimate parts, and we started to exchange such pics in a big way. After another 2 weeks, She came over, and we left the house under the pretext of buying onions at the supermarket, and we kissed for the first time. I was very surprised at how my parents took it all, as we have a pretty religious family. I thought they would forbid us from even seeing each other until we were married, but we could do anything we wanted except intimacy, the prohibition of which was implied in itself. Our wedding night was not awkward. After all, we had talked about it so much for almost a year before the wedding. We didn't have to melt the ice, as we wanted each other so badly. I have Punjabi and Hindu roots and recently got engaged to a girl who was introduced to me by relatives. We dated for a few months before making a final decision. We are only engaged for now. I agreed to get married purely out of respect for my parents, who gave me everything but never limited me the way some of my acquaintances' parents did. Future wife-to-be is the daughter of a friend of my aunt's friend. We come from the same area, and our great-great-great-grandfathers held equal positions of authority. By now there was a lot of awkwardness in our relationship. Although we were both born and raised in Canada, I consider myself fairly Europeanized in terms of dating and relationships with the opposite sex. But you can't say that about her. I'm sure she's still a virgin, and I haven't been for a long time. There was a time when I was just being a promiscuous dog. The difficulty is that I can't even broach the subject with her, because she seems pretty immature about such matters. Every time it even comes to kissing, she starts giggling, leaving me no opportunity to talk frankly about intimacy. She's very sweet. We don't share the same interests and hobbies, and we have different takes on humor, but I think some differences are a good thing. I consider myself lucky to have met my other half, and if I had to choose between my past lifestyle and her, I wouldn't hesitate to choose her. To be honest, part of the reason I agreed to the marriage was to tie my own hands and end my past. Considering our wedding is scheduled in 2 years, and I broke up with my friend with benefits to be faithful to my fiancée, the next 2 years my right arm is going to take a big hit.